Hoya versus Steve Forbes. Can the Golden Boy really be 35 years old? Forbes with a 4-year age advantage at 31. A 3-inch height advantage, and some people feel it's more like 3.5 or 4 inches, but 5'10.5" to 5'7.5" by our measurement. Arm length, 1.5 inches advantage for De La Hoya, measured from the armpit to the end of the fist. They both weighed in at the contracted weight limit of 150, 3 pounds above the welterweight level. Rules of the bout with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
The Oscar De La Hoya Stevie Forbes fight is scheduled for 12 rounds using the rules of the California State Athletic Commission. There is no 3 knockdown rule. The doctor or the referee can stop the fight. Case caused by an accidental headbutt, we go to the scorecards at the start of the 4th round, and it can be saved by the bell in the 12th and final round only. Jim!
27,000 fans here. 19,000 of them were able to get into this arena for a ticket price of $75 or less. There are quite a number of $25 tickets, as De La Hoya himself interceded into the process to make sure that quite a number of Mexican and Mexican-American fans and others of relatively moderate income would get a chance to see
basically fundamentally sound, make you look good. He's not unorthodox, but not dynamic and superior in any. He's not a great puncher. He's not extremely fast. He doesn't put a lot of excessive pressure, so he's a great opponent for Oscar to showcase his talents on tonight.
And Larry, you've made the point that while many see this as a fight between a larger man, De La Hoya, and a considerably smaller man, Forbes, that may be a bit misleading.
It is. Both Forbes and De La Hoya started their careers at 130. They both have walking around weights, they told us separately, of 165. Basically what we're looking at tonight is a smaller welterweight against a big welterweight. The difference primarily is that Oscar is taller and a superior puncher and athlete. It's not about the size.
As you look around the area close to the ring, Emmanuel Stewart, there are quite a number of signs and T-shirts even begging De La Hoya to knock Steve Forbes out.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's one of the greatest assets that Forbes brings in this fight, which gives him that little intangible that keeps me a little cautious of going overboard on Oscar. He has a great chin. Stevie Forbes has never been knocked out, and I think that could be a big factor. Tonight would be a test of Oscar's punching power, which he hasn't shown that much in recent years neither, but he's been against a better caliber opponent than Forbes.
So part of the test here for De La Hoya tonight is, can he be patient enough to make his advantages pay off? Or will he become impatient for the knockout and perhaps play into Forbes' hand?
And that's what Forbes has said. He says, I've noticed Oscar in recent fights always gets tired. He's always in great shape, to hear him say it, but going in the last half of all of his fights, he tires. And I'm going to try to force him into the last half and take advantage of that problem.
But that's the last thing on the minds of Oscar De La Hoya's fans as they prepare for a celebration of De La Hoya's long career and galvanizing persona. Boxing's biggest star has come home.
You know, this has got to be a great feeling for Oscar De La Hoya. And to see this type of reception for him at the age of 35, it's got to be a one.
So 40 years after Northern California's Summer of Love, it's a love-in in Southern California for Oscar De La Hoya. Let's go to ring announcer Michael Buffer for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Home Depot Center here in Carson, California, and the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area, where tonight Golden Boy Promotions, in association with Tournament of Contenders, AEG, HBO Sports, and the Home Depot Center are proud to present the main event of the evening, 12 rounds of world-class boxing for your entertainment. Sponsored by Cazadores, Tecate Cerveza with Character, Rockstar Energy Drink, Party like a rock star, Southwest Airlines, the symbol of freedom, and Affliction Clothing. Sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission, Chairman Tim Noonan, Vice Chairman Julio Ramirez. At ringside, the three judges scoring this bout will be Max DeLuca, Marcos Rosales, and Marty Salmons. And at the bell, the men in charge of the action inside the ring, the referee, Raul Caiz Jr. And now, for the 33rd 100,000 fans in attendance here at the Home Depot Center and the millions watching around the world. May the best man be victorious. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the blue corner, wearing black with red, official weight 150 pounds. His professional record, an excellent one, consisting of 33 victories, including 9 by knockout, with 5 defeats. From Portland, Oregon, a star of the Contenders and the former junior lightweight champion of the world, Steve 2-Pound Forbes. Fighting out of the red corner, wearing black with orange. Official weight also 150 pounds. An Olympic gold medalist who now has a professional record of 38 victories, including 30 knockouts with 5 defeats. The former junior lightweight, former lightweight, former super lightweight, former 2-time welterweight, former 2-time super welterweight, and former middleweight champion of the world from East LA, the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya.
Fighter chief second only. Fighter chief second only, please. Come over here, Steve. Mouthpiece. Perfect. Mouthpiece, Oscar. All right, gentlemen. You received the instruction in the dressing room. You know what I expect from you. I expect a good, clean fight. Legal punches are here on up. Touch gloves, good luck to both of you.
If this is an infomercial for the rematch with Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya has to not just win, but look impressive. And Stevie Forbes has never been knocked down in an 11-year career.
Ready, baby? Listo.
Two things to look for as De La Hoya pursues this first round. Emmanuel Stewart, he claims, this time I will fight like the taller man. I will not lean forward, as has been my habit in the past, and give away my height advantage. That's point one. Point two, I have learned how to relax. De La Hoya acknowledging that his general tension level as a fighter has contributed to his late fight fades over the course of the past several years. Says now that he has suddenly in training camp learned from Floyd Mayweather how to relax in the ring. Not an easy thing to do at age 35.
No, but so far he seems to be doing everything that he said he would do. He seems to be trying to stay upright. He's working behind that beautiful left jab that he has and placing his shots very well. And when he does that, he's very effective with his left hook, but he gets you to watching his left jab.
The jab disappeared in the last 4 rounds against Floyd Mayweather a year ago. If he could have kept it up, he might conceivably have won the fight. Tonight, he expects to throw as many as 35 or 40 jabs around, above the welterweight average.
Well, Oscar has a very good left jab, maybe one of the best left jabs ever in the history of boxing. And the fact that he's left-handed helps it also.
Forbes seems intent on neutralizing the jab, which is why we've seen Oscar go to the body so often in this first round.
Forbes says he has various plans for neutralizing the jab, including countering over it with the right hand, countering with his own jab, trying to mix it up, go in, go out, and use his own jab up and down the ladder to confuse De La Hoya. And you see the stiffness of the De La Hoya jab there, knocking Forbes back.
Well, this is the style that he intends to try to employ the rematch with Floyd Jr. If that fight comes off, he wins this fight.
Watch that, baby. Watch that hit.
What would he have to do differently, Emmanuel, to have a chance to beat Floyd Mayweather.
To do exactly what he's doing now. In the first fight, he came out throwing punches where there was not even a target, just flailing away, trying to, and just burned himself out. And Floyd just rested, took his time, and then took advantage of the fatigue in the last half. At this fight here, he's fighting exactly where he should fight everybody. And if he fights this way, it could be a much better fight the next fight when he fights Floyd.
Right hands over the top by De La Hoya. In our discussion yesterday, Steve Forbes at one point said, well, Oscar doesn't really have a right hand. Then later acknowledged that De La Hoya had improved that punch in recent years. A left hook lands for Forbes, and another, and a straight right hand to finish off the round. A little rally at the end for Steve Forbes.
I got it. Lead, jab, jab. Sometimes throw a fast right hand, man.
Be careful with your heads, guys.
Sometimes throw a fast right hand and go right behind the elbow and get it. Don't just keep throwing around the side. Go up there sometime. Do it, Austin.
Touching with shit moving. All we do is trying to counter, baby.
When you hear that 10-second bell, do just like you did. We're going to try to steal every round at the end. But keep working. Keep working. Look, I need a little more upper body movement. I need a little more of that. Other than that, it's fine. Good work.
You heard Jeff Mayweather reveal at least part of the plan for Forbes, which is to try to steal the round in the late seconds.
I don't know if that's going to be successful. I mean, he landed maybe the 3 cleanest punches of the round, but you know, you're going to work just a few seconds and beat Oscar. You're going to have to be busy.
De La Hoya was as good as his word in the first round about jabbing. He threw 39, landed 10 of them. 39 jabs is an extraordinarily high number, both for Oscar and for welterweights in general. And incidentally, when Jeff Mayweather talks about Oscar, he's talking from first-hand personal experience. De La Hoya knocked Jeff Mayweather out in his 4th professional fight. Right now, he's got Forbes totally on the defensive.
Oscar stepping it up now. A variety of everything.
I think he shocked Forbes with his power in this round. Now Forbes unleashes an attack, but for about 10 seconds there, he seemed to have been taken back.
Nice little left.
Good left hook inside by Steve Forbes.
Stop! Wait! Box!
Stop! No use of polo, man. No use of polo. Here we go. Let's go, box.
Referee Raul Caiz Jr. has been very verbal in the first round and a half.
I think Oscar came out and shot a big flurry at the beginning. He seems to be like getting his second win again now. And this is where Forbes should step it up a little bit and push him a little bit when he wants to take that risk.
Looks like there's a tiny trickle of blood out of Steve Forbes' right nostril. Forbes is blocking a lot of these shots.
Yes, he is.
But when he chooses not to throw back, he makes Oscar look good.
And when he does punch, he lands really more cleaner punches than Oscar lands. But he just doesn't do it often enough.
De La Hoya up and bouncing on his toes. Another promise to fans and to media prior to this fight.
Yeah, I've always said when Oscar's on his toes, that's when his rhythm, he works totally different than he does when he's flat-footed. And has better punching power when he's on his toes.
Stop at the bell. You got 5 seconds. Time.
This fight is finna get his nose, man. Come in, get the rag. Everything's finna be over, man. Here. Breathe in and relax. Relax.
Work that jab up and down.
If you step out, stay out of range. Stay out of range. When you're ready to punch inside, throw all the shit inside. You don't want
Here you see Oscar through a nice flurry of combinations. All of them was very well placed, but none of them that clearly landed where they had that much really devastating effect. They was half landed.
Emmanuel, Oscar at 150 weighed in less than he has for 7 or 8 years. Do you see any effect on him? Is he quicker a little bit? Is he sharper at all?
Yes, I think this is his natural weight. I've never thought that he was really a junior middleweight or either middleweight, definitely. I think this is where he belongs at, around 150, 147 pounds. He's faster, crisper with his punches, and has much more explosive power.
And if CompuBox numbers are an accurate indicator, he's won the jabbing contest in the first couple of rounds. De La Hoya, 24 out of 67 in jabs to 9 of 80 for Forbes. Interesting that Forbes is throwing more. Where Forbes is not throwing a lot is with his right hand, as he tries to keep it in a lot to protect against De La Hoya's left hook, which is by far Oscar's biggest weapon.
But there is a little bit of the start of a lump below Oscar's left eye. So something is getting there. Like that.
De La Hoya doing a good job of catching the right hand there with his left, and now the jab lands solidly. And he comes back with a good left hook to the body.
Forbes has one of those defenses that invites a fighter like Oscar to throw flurries. And while the flurries may not all land or land cleanly, they add up to points.
Yeah, and then it creates a lot of excitement the way that Oscar throws his combination. But looking very closely, a lot of them are not landing. They're about 70% landing for cleaners, not all the way.
There's an abrasion on the bridge of Oscar De La Hoya's nose. And that's why you heard Floyd Mayweather Sr. between rounds saying, get his nose. Forbes indicating with the pumping of his hands there, yeah, I'm willing to try to match hand speed with you. I think my hands are just as fast as yours. Once again, De La Hoya landing the jab and backing Forbes up.
But Forbes' strategy is to hope that Oscar wears down late in the fight. It may be too late for him because he's got to win some early rounds.
And especially in view of the fact that he's not a knockout puncher himself, Larry.
They trade body shots in the center of the ring. Forbes giving as good as he's getting. Right hand was partially blocked by De La Hoya there.
10 seconds, gentlemen. Stop at the bell.
Steve Forbes has only 9 knockouts among his 33 wins.
It seems like his confidence is starting to grow as the fight goes on more.
Leave it a little slow. Look at man, you making the fight harder than you want it. All you gotta do is get your jab to popping like you've been popping in the gym, same thing. Just pop that jab more and move your head, that's all you gotta do. Back it.
Come over the top. Okay. Let him see something new. Make him walk into something. Back up. Same thing we work on in the gym. Have some fun.
Give him angle, pal. He don't like that smart boxing shit. Okay. Anytime you feinting him, moving, stepping, make this motherfucker look for you. Make him look for you. Don't give him. All right, let's go. Give him out.
Second time, mouthpiece in. Let's go.
CompuBox numbers in the third round. De La Hoya 22 out of 63 to 12 of 70 for Forbes. De La Hoya is winning the numbers game in all 3 rounds so far. Harold, how do you score it?
Okay, Jim. 3 rounds to nothing. 30-27, Oscar De La Hoya. Jim, I love that left jab. I mean, he's jabbing beautifully, setting up real good combination punches. I mean, when Oscar opens up, it's 4, 5, 6 shots at a time. Look at that. Always shows combinations. Beautiful jab, beautiful combinations. And I love the way he shoe-shined them in round 2. 3-0, De La Hoya.
You know, this is a very important fight for Jeff Mayweather, too, because, you know, he's the only one he said has never gotten his recognition. So this is a big challenge for him as well as his fighter, Forbes.
Forbes looks like now he wants to brawl. He's tasted Oscar's shots, and he doesn't seem intimidated by them. And he knows that he's going to have to start making up some ground.
Well, but part of the danger of choosing Steve Forbes is that he can fight in 2 or maybe 3 different styles. So he's a guy who's capable of making an adjustment during the fight if things aren't going well.
The most important thing to me in this fight has been Oscar's left jab, and the next thing is the defense of Forbes. He gets it with punches, but not with the full effect.
And as De La Hoya's face begins to show marks, even from the relatively light-hitting Forbes, you think about the inactivity. A basic fight schedule of, maybe 1 fight per year for the past 5 years.
But I'll tell you what, Oscar's fighting a very tough fight, though. Very determined. He's really focusing on trying to make a great statement tonight.
What do you make of Forbes showboating like this, Emmanuel?
I thought he's very comfortable with the situation. He feels that the fight is going pretty much, even though he feels he's losing, he's probably feeling going the way that he figured it would go, and it's going to be better for him at the end. He seems to be very comfortable now in this fight and very confident.
Seconds, gentlemen. Stop at that bell.
Forbes is indeed comfortable. The harder blows are landing for De La Hoya as we complete the 4th.
The idea of this game is not to be comfortable, it's to fight.
We gotta get a little more busy though. Okay. I mean, you catching good, and look, don't forget, you keep throwing to the body, bang, shoot. Okay. Shoot, he there.
Keep moving, do what you're doing, baby. Okay. Keep throwing punches.
But I need some head movement though.
Okay.
You
might have seen the numbers that show De La Hoya averaging 35 jabs per round and landing about 35% of them so far. Here's a look at the Oscar De La Hoya jab, which has been set up by lively footwork so far.
His jab has been his only truly successful punch. The rest of the flurries look good, but they're partially landed, but his jabs are right on the money tonight.
Emmanuel, given that Steve Forbes is not exactly knockout fodder based on his record, is De La Hoya's left hook big enough to deliver a knockout here?
I think De La Hoya can knock out anyway. His best punch is his left hook. Right there, when he springs off on his toes is when he has his most power on his left hook. But so far, Forbes has never been hit too much with any blow solid or clean except the left hook. I mean, it's the left jabs from Oscar. He's partially blocked most of Oscar's power punches. Only the left jab has been effective for Oscar.
De La Hoya knocked out Ricardo Mayorga in May of 2006. Tremendous performance. Perhaps a bit of a mirage because Mayorga is so easy to hit if you have boxing skill. But that knockout was built on repeated left hooks.
Yeah, Oscar, he's a good puncher. His left hook is a strange left hook, as I've said. It doesn't look like much, but it has tremendous power in it, which I can never even understand, even when I was training him. But he hurts everybody with the left hook.
Well, I've always said it came out of the cradle. It wasn't a learned left hook. It's a natural gift.
Well, the fact that he's a southpaw fighting in a conventional stance, so his best hand is always out front, and his best hand is what's won him most of his fights and why he's here.
And over the course of the past 10 years, we've seen more and more young boxers using that format, switching around. If you're a right-hander, fight as a southpaw. If you're a left-hander, fight in a conventional stance. Get the stronger hand in front. It worked for De La Hoya. It worked for Michael Moore. It's worked for a lot of other fighters.
I think Oscar's fighting a very good fight. And both guys really. I mean, when you consider everything, Oscar's putting his combinations together. He's thinking better. He's working his jabs, mixing up his work. And then Forbes is counter-punching and doing what he can do best, but he just isn't busy enough. Both guys are fighting very well.
Well, if Oscar's idea was to get a very good workout against a somewhat look-alike for Floyd Jr., he's getting it.
I agree, Larry.
But workout wasn't the goal. Knockout is the business that they must be looking for here, to try to build interest for the rematch with Mayweather.
Well, maybe he can get both, Jim.
10 seconds, gentlemen. Stop at the bell. 10 seconds. Stop at the bell. Cut.
Forbes, wife of Steve, one of the stars of our countdown to De La Hoya Forbes show.
No.
Let's make you fight in the middle of the ring. Okay. Every time you bag up,
what's that?
That was the wrong picture. Punches, giving
right.
a little
Later.
Punches, just keep him in the center of the ring. Make him work. Make. Yeah, well, yeah. More combination. When you get him up against the rope or in the corner, all right? All right, good. Good work.
Box.
As round 6 begins, Oscar De La Hoya seems to have won virtually every round, although Harold Letterman gave the last round to Forbes. Okay, so maybe the fight shifts just a little bit. Jabs through 5. De La Hoya 55 out of 172. He's still throwing an average of about 35 jabs per round in every round. De La Hoya with a mouse under the left eye, a little mark under the right eye, and a scratch on the bridge of his nose. So Forbes has been in there. Left hooks. De La Hoya shifting to an uppercut with the left hand. Misses twice. Now lands his jab.
Watch those hands. Watch those hands.
Forbes' attitude seems a little bit more serious about trying to deliver some hurt now.
Yeah, both of these guys, I think, seem to have stepped it up a level. First, I thought Oscar was uncomfortable a couple of rounds back, and now he's gotten back into the fight. And now Forbes is coming back again.
De La Hoya blocking Forbes' right-hand shot there with the left. Both guys have done an excellent job of blocking punches with their gloves.
And I like to look in both of these fighters' eyes. Sometimes you can see where guys giving in and, lost confidence or whatever. But these guys both are showing a lot of determination and competitive spirit in their eyes.
There's a cut
Outside the
right eye of Stevie Forbes.
Came from that last exchange. And I didn't see a head involvement, so you have to assume that the cut is from a punch. Either a left hook or a left jab.
As a matter of fact, there hasn't been too many head clashes or even clinches in this fight for the most part. The referee has not had to do too much of anything, just let the guys fight.
Forbes walking into a little left hook there. De La Hoya beginning to slow down with the jab. Not throwing quite as many in this round as he seems to focus more on power punches suddenly.
Sometimes what the opponent does is why you do what you do, and perhaps Forbes has become more mindful of that jab.
Good right hand by De La Hoya.
5 seconds on it.
That's what I'm talking about.
On the next Real Sports, Ryan Gumbel sits down with Venus Williams, one of tennis's most successful but perhaps least understood stars. In June, it's the golf documentary Back Nine at Cherry Hills, the legends of the 1960 U.S. Open. It's one of the classics when Hogan, Palmer, and Nicklaus battled to an unforgettable finish.
Don't lean on the ropes. Anytime your back touches the ropes, go to the center of the ring. Touch him. Shoot the shit to the body. He don't want it. He don't.
You gotta keep them hands up. You gotta keep them hands up. You gave him a target now. He got your eyes, you got a target. So keep them hands up. Keep everything tight.
Oscar De La Hoya with a 22-14 advantage and landed punches in the sixth. Referee Raul Caiz Jr. assures us between rounds that the cut outside Forbes' right eye was caused by a punch. Harold, how do you have it through six?
Okay, Jim. 5 rounds to 1, 59-55, Oscar De La Hoya. Jim, in round 5, I thought Oscar really took the round off. He relaxed a bit. Stevie Forbes landed that up jab. You know that Nate Campbell up jab he throws. Keeps that left hand down. There he goes with it. He comes right up with that left jab. He did a good job in round 5 to win that. Other than that, Oscar De La Hoya on effective aggressiveness and clean, effective punching.
And somewhere, Jacksonville, Florida's 36-year-old Nate Campbell is delighted that Harold Letterman has now named the up jab for him. You're the first with that, Harold. De La Hoya missing over the top. Forbes landed 3 punches on the belt line. And you heard Jeff Mayweather between rounds saying, Steve, you're going to have to keep your hands up because he's got a target now with this cut outside your eye. Good uppercut by De La Hoya. Mixed in an uppercut with the left hand amid those body shots and caught Forbes flush. Again, De La Hoya doing a good job of blocking Forbes' jab with his gloves. That's a Floyd Mayweather senior specialty, teaching the fighter to pick and parry and catch punches with his gloves. And Oscar, over the years, has learned it pretty well.
You think, Emmanuel, that Forbes would be doing something different if he had Roger Mayweather in his corner, Roger being the more offensive-minded Mayweather trainer?
No, I don't think so. I think Oscar just setting such a tempo. He's busy jabbing, hooking, mixing up combinations, and he's made, for the most part, Forbes become a defensive fighter. He's trying to figure out what Oscar's going to do next, and that's what Oscar wants to do. Oscar just setting a tempo that he can't handle.
These are the best combinations De La Hoya has thrown all night. 2 violent assaults in a row that pinned Forbes against the ropes here in the 7th of 12 rounds.
You think there are any other wannabe billionaires on the planet who could throw those combinations?
No, Oscar he's really into this fight. He really wanted to make a statement tonight, and that's what he's doing too.
So the question now becomes, will he fade in the last 4 rounds of the fight?
I don't think so
tonight. As has been the pattern over the years.
No, he seemed to be fighting the perfect fight tonight. And he knows where his punches are going.
Wife of Oscar De La Hoya, Millie De La Hoya. She, of course, hails from Puerto Rico. And Oscar has stated 2 or 3 times in the last few years that he would never fight another Puerto Rican fighter in honor of Millie. But recently the tune has changed. He's been talking about Miguel Cotto for December.
Down, down and up. Fade hook. Fade hook right hand. You understand?
Here you see Oscar putting together so many different variety of combinations of punches. Not any one punch is landing clean, as I said earlier, but it's just a consistency of those combinations from all different angles are beginning to take their effect as the fight goes on.
CompuBox numbers in the 7th round, De La Hoya 19 out of 71. You saw how many of the punches were near misses in that exchange. Forbes 14 out of 54. The 54 punches thrown, the lowest output of the fight for Forbes.
Emmanuel, it is noticeable that Oscar seems more relaxed. That his body isn't tensed up like a balled fist. He's standing tall. He's doing what he planned to do.
That's what I said. He's fighting the perfect fight. But after losing about probably 4 fights based on, in all of those fights, for the most part, he was ahead on points, including Bernard Hopkins. Most all of his fights he lost, he was ahead on points, and he faded in the end. So I think he's got the message now finally.
How much of it, Emmanuel, is that it's so much easier to relax against a guy with 9 knockouts and 33 wins, as opposed to larger, tougher men like Hopkins and some of the other people he's fought?
I think it has some effect on him, but I think he really came to this fight determined he's going to fight tall, work off his jab, and he's doing everything he said. But, you know, knowing he's fighting a guy that's not a big puncher, maybe we'll have him be a little bit more comfortable. But I think he would have did this regardless, though.
Because he's always taken such a good punch anyway.
Yes.
In 43 fights prior to tonight, Oscar De La Hoya has never had a knockout past the 8th round. Excuse me. That's Forbes, who's never had a knockout past the 8th round. Of course, Vargas was an 11th round knockout victim for De La Hoya back in 2003.
And what was really impressive, even though he didn't score a knockout, the final round of the fight with Ike Quartey, which he put on a tremendous gallant show that last round, and knocked Quartey down.
Let him go, Stevie, let him go. Let him go, baby, come on. Don't push yourself, there you go, hands up. Protect yourself at all times, gentlemen.
Forbes has sparred hundreds of rounds with Floyd Mayweather Jr., but he ain't no Floyd Mayweather Jr., that's clear.
No, definitely is not. Floyd Mayweather's very special. But you know, the most impressive thing he's been doing recently is just the showboating. Coming back, a lot of, you know, showing off, but not really landing effective punches.
Look, we gotta let punches go. I think Oscar, this might be where Oscar's starting to get a little tired.
Okay.
So press him a little bit. When I'm saying pressing smart. Moving your head inside. Try to get inside and let your hands go.
Okay.
Let them combinations go. Let this crowd see.
Okay.
Jab will set everything up. Everything come off the jab. You got me?
Yeah.
All right then.
Right here, you see near the end of the round, Steve Forbes and a little weird left uppercut type shot that really bothered Oscar for a few seconds.
Looks like it got right in his eye, the corner of his glove.
Right in eye socket.
Box numbers in 8. De La Hoya slowed down a little bit, 17 out of 57. That's the low output for De La Hoya in the fight. Forbes, 12 out of 73. As Steve boosted his output a little, but wasn't really landing that much. Though, of course, you saw the replay of the really good left-hand shot. Well, you heard Jeff Mayweather asking Steve Forbes to go pressure De La Hoya. And then he sort of backed it off and said, well, pressure him intelligently.
Yeah, but Oscar set such a pace, he can't handle this. You know, he can't pressure Oscar. All he can do is do just exactly what he's doing now. Fight in spots, do a little showboating, show Oscar he didn't hurt him, and do things like that. But he can't keep up with the pace that Oscar set.
All of that will conspire to maybe win him 2 or 3 rounds on the scorecards.
I haven't given him a round. I mean, I know that Harold gave him a round. I thought it was because he did better than he did in another round, but I don't think he's actually clearly won a round yet. He's had some competitive rounds, but I don't think he's won, at least in my score.
De La Hoya very good with the left hand again here. Landing hooks and jabs. Forbes slows down, not throwing. De La Hoya manages to pressure him against the ropes again.
If Forbes had any idea of becoming aggressive, Oscar is sort of knocking that idea out of his head.
Absolutely, Larry.
Stop. Watch it, both of you guys. Box.
And that little nod that Forbes gave to Oscar showed a bit of the sparring partner mentality to me, acknowledging that Oscar had done something good. Get even.
Well, there's a part of you that wants to say Forbes is too good a fighter to have been thoroughly victimized by the sparring partner mentality. But on the other hand, he's quite open about the amount of time he has spent sparring with stars and what it's done for him in his career. And Emmanuel, I think over a long period of time, it's hard to escape it if you're that kind of guy.
That's true, but I just think that Oscar's fighting a tremendous fight tonight. I mean, I don't care what mindset he had tonight. It'd be hard to fight Oscar where he's fighting tonight.
Not just a good fight, a tremendous fight.
Yeah, he's really fighting a perfect fight. Look like he's turned back the clock like Shane Mosley did in this last fight with Cotto. Looks very sharp, energized, good tempo, everything is perfect.
Even counting the caliber of opponent?
Yes.
He just came back on that round. You got to get busy. You got to work. Dig down. Find it. You got to find it. Dig down in yourself.
Listen, you throwing one punch at a time. Every time you throw one punch, he ain't even getting tired because of that. You got to make him work. Throw more punches. Bag him up. He's not doing shit when you bag him up. Throw more than...
The second win. Okay.
Let that conditioning kick in now, Oscar. Let it go.
Everything coming in, baby. You ready?
Pick it up, man.
You ready? Pick it up, baby, right now.
Don't waste punches.
Boy, you gonna turn it on right now.
Don't waste punches, though. Second down.
Box spot. Keep box.
It seems counterintuitive that the very successful veteran champion would seem to be hungrier, more determined than a young challenger.
Right, but that is the case. Oscar's a very competitive person. You know, I had experience with him when I was training him. He's not only competitive, he was willing to take risks. I mean, just the fact that, and you look at in the last probably 10 years, outside of probably, I would say, Winky Wright and Vernon Forrest, he's fought nearly everybody from 130 to 160 that would fight him. He's not dodged anyone.
Harold, how do you have it through 9?
Okay, Jim. 89, 82, 8 rounds to 1. Oscar De La Hoya. Jim, I tell you, Oscar's landed on sensational combinations the entire fight, winning round after round after round on clean, effective punching. Stevie Forbes got a great jaw. I mean, you got to hand it to him. An average guy would have been down on his back by now. Be as it may, Stevie just doesn't have enough pop to win most of these rounds, but he certainly is trying. 8 to 1. De La Hoya.
Harold, did you score Nicole Scherzinger's national anthem?
Little too long, little too long.
Not long enough for me.
See, that's once again, Forbes had a pretty good rally. See, Oscar come right back and took control right away. He refuses to let Forbes take control of the fight.
And I think we have to agree with Emmanuel, or have to agree with Larry Emmanuel, that the relaxation is showing up. De La Hoya looks looser, not as tired, more ready to fight in round 10 than has been the case in several recent outings.
Just exactly what he said he would do.
Incidentally, when we asked him about the disappearing jab against Mayweather, one of his observations, which was revealing, was, hey, I'm 35, and my body's not the same. But if he's got a rotator cuff problem, and he said that he did, it doesn't seem to be showing up here. De La Hoya rallies, so Forbes tries to rally back. And the crowd gets its entertainment in round 10.
Once again, Oscar created a tremendous amount of excitement because of the fast hands and the way he delivers with so much excitement, but really only a couple of punches landed cleanly.
Frustrated Dodger fans may think that it's because De La Hoya now says he's got rotator cuff issues in his shoulder that he was invited to throw out the first pitch for the Dodger game last weekend. Dodger fans may be wondering why he didn't start. But he looks good here.
10 seconds,
Looked pretty good throwing out the first pitch, too.
Yeah, it looks very good. After the flurry, he came right back again after taking a few seconds of rest and recoup. And he came back and took control over again.
10 rounds done. 2 to go.
Smart, don't get wild.
I want you to do this. He ain't gonna back you up because you've been hitting him with some good shots. He ain't gonna back you up. What you need to do now is get inside and hit him with some hard body shots. All right? You need to get inside and do that.
Take your shot.
You got enough energy?
Take your shots.
All right, baby, let's go.
Let me see the bicycle for good 15, 20 seconds, baby. Feel your feet and let's work. Let's throw some
Like I
punches
said,
when you inside.
anytime you only roll punches, let them punches go.
Stevie Forbes has never been knocked down.
Round 11.
And that seems impressive, and I guess in its own way it is. It shows that he can take a punch and that he has good defense. But maybe on the flip side, it's like a guy who doesn't take any risks. I mean, I don't think getting knocked down is the worst thing that's happened to a lot of great fighters, any more than I think that being unbeaten is what prize fighting is about.
Yeah, but Forbes has 38 pro fights and has never been knocked down. Guys are conscious of stuff like that. I mean, he knows he's never been knocked down. So there are certain risks that simply may be outside his envelope here. CompuBox numbers in the 10th round, De La Hoya 27 out of 80. The 80 is the high number thrown in the fight so far for Oscar. Forbes only 9 of 69. The competitive distance between them seems to be expanding a little bit. And Emmanuel, this is not a title fight. In fact, De La Hoya has been admirably honest in saying, I'm not champion of anything. I think I'm just a contender. Why did Oscar want to fight 12 rounds? Is that part of the rehearsal for Mayweather?
I think it's part of rehearsal, but he's been a star fighter, really, when you think about it. I think he won his first world title in his 11th professional fight. So he just used to fighting on this level, and he didn't want to drop down to fight in a 10-round fight.
Could have been celebrating already.
Yeah. I just can't see no way Steve not being a puncher is going to turn Oscar around. Oscar seems to be very determined, not even to lose a round. He's trying to win every round and every minute of every round if he can.
Trying to banish the ghosts of so many lost rounds over the course of the past 6 years in the closing stages of big fights. Faded down the stretch in the second fight against Shane Mosley. Faded down the stretch in the fight against Mayweather last year.
And Felix Stern.
Faded down the stretch against Felix Trinidad 9 years ago.
That was a self-inflicted wound.
But he's fighting the same aggressiveness in the 11th round that he fought with in the first round. And maybe the opponent not being a really big guy, maybe a really dangerous guy, may have some effect. But I still think he's fighting a very good fight.
Another nod from Forbes to De La Hoya at the end of the round, as if to say, this is a heck of a good sparring session.
Let's work.
Hey,
this is the last round. We need to throw
we need everything.
We need to throw some punches, baby. Let's throw some punches.
Dig down. Look, you gotta have everything. Okay. Leave it all right here. Okay. Ain't no tomorrow. Everything right here today.
Okay. Listen, he's gonna come out and he's gonna try to win this round. You know this. This is De La Hoya. He ain't going out there.
That's right. This is the first round, baby. There you go.
Great shape.
There we go.
Kick your shots, play with them.
Get out. That's okay. Good. Good.
That's right, Oscar. Touch goes, baby.
Hands up, though, huh?
Leave it all right here. Everything right here. Steve, you got.
Touch goes. Here we go. Last round, baby.
Will Stevie Forbes open up? And if he does, will he walk into something?
Yep, when you come in and be aggressive, you leave yourself open.
That's what the crowd will be hoping for. Oscar De La Hoya looking for the 39th victory of his career, looking to set up a September date for a rematch with Floyd Mayweather.
Well, I think he's doing a good job of setting it up, and I think based on this performance, I think it's going to make the odds change a little bit better and people have more respect for him in the rematch.
Because
he's fighting a perfect fight. He's not running out of gas. He's looking like Oscar used to look about 10 years ago.
That's an amazing statement, Manuel.
I think he looks very good, but Steve Forbes is not that bad a fighter.
So far, even though he was a class above the other fighters on the contenders, he's suffering the same fate as some of them did when they got into the ring with top fighters.
Emmanuel, when you were training Oscar De La Hoya about 10 years ago, is this the way you wanted to get him to fight?
Yes, he's doing everything. He's not throwing his wider punches. He's not bending down. The last half of the fight, when he fought with Floyd, he actually started to bend him down. His feet was getting square. Seemed like mentally he couldn't focus, I think. And that's what he was doing in most of his recent fights, but he's not that way tonight. Staying on his toes, staying tall, staying loose. Beautiful left hook.
Living up to everything he promised before the fight. Fighting a big man's fight. Fighting more relaxed. Throwing 35 jabs per round. Generally outclassing Forbes with his boxing skill, his natural gifts, his taller, bigger man philosophy.
Yeah, and you know, he's doing everything tall, and he's not bending down in this fight unnecessarily.
Those who came here looking for the knockout were overreaching, wishing for too much against a solid professional opponent who has as one of his greatest credentials the fact that he's never been down.
The best punch that Forbes has landed all night.
Right hand.
Just right there.
Yep.
But he doesn't do it enough.
Landed one big straight right hand in the middle of the ring.
But in 12 rounds, you should land one good clean punch at least. So, you know, I give him credit, but not an excessive credit.
20 seconds to go. De La Hoya will try to finish with a flourish. Let's see if Forbes is still trying to steal rounds with rallies at the end.
10 seconds, gentlemen. 10 seconds. Come to the ring.
Referee Raul Cais Jr. makes sure they know there are 10 seconds to go. And both fighters let their hands go. Or at least for a moment they did.
Not the drama fans want, but maybe the drama of watching an old pro act like his younger self.
Perhaps most importantly, the suggestion at least that there might be more drama in September than there was a year ago. Here are the judges who will be rendering the official decision. An unusual group because of their inexperience. Max DeLuca, 3 title fights in California, and incidentally, he was the dissenter in a split decision victory for Grady Brewer over Steve Forbes in the Contender Final in 2006. He scored it for Forbes. Marcos Rosales, we couldn't find a previous notable fight which he had scored. And Marty Salmon is most notable as the guy who scored the first fight between De La Hoya and Mosley for De La Hoya. So both fighters, it appears, were able to cherry-pick judges who had been favorable to them in the past. Michael Buffer already has the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, here at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California, we go to the scorecards. Max DeLuca and Marty Salmon both score the bout 119-109. Marcos Rosales 120-108. All to the winner by unanimous decision. From East LA, the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya.
You probably saw Harold Letterman's scorecard, which was 119-109. De La Hoya gets the victory he wanted and produces, in large part, exactly the display he wanted to produce. Probably Oscar was quite aware of how difficult to reach it might be to get a knockout against Steve Forbes tonight.
Yeah, but this is the best thing could have happened to him in preparing for a tune-up rematch. I mean, for a tune-up fight and a rematch with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Even though Forbes is not a Mayweather, he's still a very good fighter.
CompuBox numbers: De La Hoya landing 101 more and throwing 34 more, landing at an 11% higher connect percentage. Oscar averaged over 30 jabs thrown per round. There you go. Averaged more than 30, about 33, 34 jabs thrown per round, and landed a little more than 10 per round. Connect percentage on the jabs identical to the connect percentage on the power punches. Solid, consistent performance. Let's go to Larry Merchant in the ring.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations, Oscar. Is this how you envisioned the fight? Fighting in this old, straight-up style and just outboxing him?
Well, that was the game plan, and obviously, first of all, I want to say hi to everybody in East LA. Thank you very much for all your support at Los Angeles. I love you guys, and Stevie Forbes, that's the way he fights. That's the way he is, and I was hoping I would stop him or knock him out, but since he's never been stopped or knocked out, I mean, I knew he was gonna be a tough customer.
Are you disappointed then?
I'm a little disappointed. because obviously I worked very hard in the gym, but it goes to show you what kind of fighter Stevie Forbes is. He is really not the 2-pound Forbes, but the 800-pound Forbes.
He told me just before the decision was announced that he thought that if you could fight in this style, that you had a much better chance to defeat Mayweather. He having fought or sparred with Mayweather for hundreds of rounds. Give us your analysis of that.
Well, yes, the idea is to stand up and fight more straight up and use the jab and bounce on my toes a little and be aggressive at the same time. So I'm happy I took on Forbes, and I'm happy that we fought here in LA, and now I feel sharp. After 12 hard rounds, now I feel sharp after a year layoff.
So you believe that this fight and the way it went accomplished your goal as the first of a trilogy of fights this year?
Well, it accomplished my goal of the first of 3, and I'm ready to have 2 big exciting fights come September and December.
Is the deal with Mayweather set?
No, it's not, but obviously I've always prided myself in fighting the best, and I'm going to go after him because I know I can beat him.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Congratulations.
Thank you, HBO.
Jim?